Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to Britain versus America, who does it better. In the thumbnail it was countryside, but I feel like it's going to be multiple things and it's just going to be a comparison, right? But it's the Lost in the Pond videos. I'm not reacted to him for like over a week or so. So I mean, yeah, we're back and yeah, we're going to check this out. Hopefully you're going to enjoy. Hopefully you're all doing well. Links are in the description to my Patreon where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube. And yeah, let's jump into this.
Hello, this video is sponsored by BritBox, the premier
Secure on the
streaming
bag.
service for Britain's most beloved TV
Come
shows. I'm Lawrence Brown and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to things and stuff. Specifically, things and stuff that one country does better than the other. And as somebody who's lived extensively in both countries, I am perhaps more primed than most people to give my verdict on it. Basically, this is going to be a straightforward video for which my team has concocted a list of categories, or as they say here in the United States, categories. And controversially, my job is to tell you which country does that thing best. Knowing that my hot takes will likely lose me 1,000 subscribers. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, do that now. In the meantime, who does it better, Britain or America?
Most welcoming. I feel like you could get different opinions because I feel like anyone coming, like I feel like Americans, when people from other countries come, is that sort of the comparison? Is it just like welcoming like people into your home and stuff? I'm sort of taking this as welcoming foreigners into your country, but that's probably not even what this is about.
First category, welcoming visitors. I don't know that there's any country on earth that has absolutely perfected this, but as someone who's been a visitor to both countries, I suppose this is quite hard to decide. It's also made harder by the fact that airports are not particularly welcoming places. So I think this has to be judged once you've got in the taxi. And for the most part, Americans are very welcoming. Sometimes that is with a painted smile, whereas in Britain, those smiles tend to look less worked on. But I would say on the whole, I felt equally welcome in either country, so this one's a tie.
I can't compare. I mean, I've not been to the US, and when I've arrived in the UK, just wanting to get home, to be honest, when I'm away and stuff.
Signage is probably a big part of feeling welcome or not welcome in another country, because if it's not any good, you'll feel lost, which is probably why this book that I discovered at San Francisco Airport feels very apt. But on the whole, I've had good and bad experiences in either country. In America, specifically here in Chicago, signage can be bad when you're trying to cross a street downtown, because sometimes you'll have Google Maps with you, but the roads won't be labelled on the other side of the road, so you don't know what road it is, and you have to look at the other roads to find out what road that is, and then sometimes that's not clear, and you don't know which intersection you're at. On the other hand, back in Britain, a problem that's very common that I think is a little less common in America, signage on the front of establishments often don't know where to put an apostrophe. So while I'm sure 95% of the time both countries have good signage, it's the bad signage that sticks out to me, and in equal terms. So again, without wishing to sit on the fence, I would say this one is also a tie.
Public transport. I think we're taking the W here. From what I've learned in previous reactions, I think Britain are finally taking a win here, although I don't think it's actually great here. I just think because it's such a small country, it just makes it a lot easy to set up, a lot easier to set up, really. So that's the only reason.
Public transport. I think anybody who's ever watched my channel before might have an inclination as to which way this is going to go. I think Britain, while not even being the best in Europe for public transport, is still pound for pound more reliable than its American equivalent. Now, don't get me wrong, when I was in San Francisco last week, I absolutely loved it.
This is cool. Look at this, man. This looks so fancy. Like, this is a fancy little tram going up this hill. I don't even, like, looking from this angle, it looks very hard how it's even got the power to go up. But
trams. In Chicago, I love the L train when Chainsaw Jim isn't on board. But here's what America's lacking. A more comprehensive nationwide train network. Buses in some cities that show up on a regular basis. And good long-distance buses, because Greyhound. Whereas Britain has a more reliable and robust transport infrastructure. So I will go with Britain.
Come on. Walkability. I feel like it'll be Britain again, right?
Walkability, which is quite hard to generalise, especially given the size of the United...
It definitely will, from what I've seen. I mean, from what I've seen, some like major cities won't have pathways in certain areas of the city, and it's kind of wild to me that that wouldn't be the case. Obviously, a highway is a highway. You don't want walking there. But I mean more so like in cities.
States. But despite the fact that Britain's public transport is superior, It is also more walkable, because obviously in America there's a big reliance on cars. So a lot of American cities, Chicago being a fine example, built massive suburbs that expanded way beyond the actual city. And sometimes this is so far out that walking is just not a viable option. In Britain, everything's squished together more and often within walking distance. So it's not unusual for somebody to walk to the post office or the chip shop or the pub. Whereas in America, walking is much further down the list when it comes to everyday mobility. So going into a 4-2 lead, Britain wins the walkability category for my money.
Beaches, well, I don't think the beaches are necessarily bad in the UK. It's just the weather doesn't like. You'll have about 3 months in a year where it's possible to go to the beach and actually like really enjoy it. Like you can go to a beach and enjoy it if you're like walking your dog and stuff, but you're going to the beach most likely to enjoy the sun, aren't you? So even though the beaches here are good, the weather in turn makes it not very good. And obviously the US, you've got beaches in Miami, you've got beaches in flipping California, and I feel like all along just the US coasts, really, the beaches in the summers will always be nice, but throughout the years I feel like, maybe not throughout the year, but most like through the year, like 10 months of the year in like Miami, you can go to the beach and enjoy it because of the sun and stuff.
Beaches. This is going to be a hard one because I have some very fond memories of British beaches. Those in the southwest are particularly stunning during the summer.
That is beautiful. Where is this? The southwest. I mean, this is like Cornwall then, right? I know Cornwall is very nice in terms of like the beaches and stuff. This is wild. The city's literally, or the town or whatever, is built on the beach. What the hell? I've never seen this before.
Months. On the other hand, the beach in Brighton is made of pebbles. I also grew up near a beach, even though it was often laden with used Durex products. Whereas in America, you know what? The beaches that I've seen tend to be quite clean. And because it's got an absolutely gigantic coastline, I think there's just a greater diversity of beaches, many of which I've not visited. True. But I have been to a beach on the West Coast, the Great Lakes, Florida, and up in Maine. And I've always found them to be nice and well kept, and sometimes the bearer of a beautiful sunset. So on this score, I'm going to have to give the edge to America. Who has the best
countryside? I mean, there's more countryside in the US. I think just because there's more in the US, it's probably going to be the US that wins because there's just more to choose from, I guess. But I feel like it's nice in both countries.
Countryside. This is a tough one to pick. I think America has a greater diversity of how countryside might look, depending on where you are in the country. And sometimes, like when I went out to West Virginia, the countryside is absolutely beautiful and rolling. On the other hand, while driving through the entire state of Indiana, sometimes the most interesting thing for 300 miles is a barn house. Whereas on the occasions that I visited Britain in the last few years, the countryside in its green splendour did something to me as it passed by the train, or as the train passed it. Physics was not my strong point. I think it was nostalgia, but it was also affirmation of my love of the colour green. In fact, when I think of Britain, my first thought is the greenliness of the countryside, and so I have no choice but to restore Britain's 2-point lead.
City life. I mean, it'll probably be the US. I don't live in a major city, so I can't really compare, to be honest.
Now, the reverse of that, city life. Who does it better? And given the vast amounts of cities in both countries, this puts me in a difficult spot. I've never been bored in Liverpool, Manchester, or London. The same is true in Chicago, or San Francisco, or New York City. I think with this, I'm going to have to let my emotions guide me and go back to a comment that I made in a video not too long ago, in which I said, sometimes when I'm walking down a street in Chicago, I just look around myself and go, oh my gosh, I live in America. And I think that feeling is particularly strong in a city because you have so many visual markers of its Americanness. And this probably just plays into my childhood obsession with America. But sometimes with those huge skyscrapers and blinking lights, I feel like I'm in a movie, and it's not altogether a bad feeling. So controversially, I'm going to go with American cities. But there's a lot more to unpack with.
I feel like with the US, there's so many cities that are just huge. Like in the UK, you have big cities, but there's a few that stand out. Then there's a few medium-sized and then a few smaller ones. In the US, you've got tons of just massive cities that I assume just you go there and it's just like, yeah, you're in this massive city that you can do all kinds of things, you know. So
maybe there's a future video in my brain. Film and
I feel like it's gonna be a win for the US here. So it's gonna be a tie at this point in time or a draw, because I feel like we have good TV here in the UK. But when you've got Hollywood, I mean, it just makes it a bit unfair, to be honest.
Television, I think it depends on which of those words we're talking about as to who wins. If it's film, America wins hands down. In fact, most of the films that I watched growing up in Britain were most likely American films. Wizard of Oz, Back to the Future, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and one criminally overlooked by the Academy, Herbie Rides Again. On the other hand, while there has been some absolutely excellent American television, I grew up more so on British stuff, which I kind of prefer for a number of reasons. Number one, our TV shows tend not to be as loud. And if it's BBC stuff, you don't have any ads, never mind an ad every 5 minutes. And I like the fact that on British television, a lot of the characters look like real people, as opposed to looking like they came straight from a modelling shoot. So for me, Britain gets the edge on television, meaning that film and television is a tie. And I've teamed up with BritBox to make it easier.
This is a good transition, actually. This is a good transition. I'll let this run.
You to see your British favourites yourself. And their latest 4-part miniseries is about the English-born American film star Cary Grant.
What accent you got, kid? English.
Archie, starring Jason Isaacs in the title role, Grant's real name was Archibald Leach, is an intriguing portrayal of the star's life that includes plenty of cameos from other stars from the golden age of cinema. And if my world-renowned humour ever gets too much, why not indulge in some dramatic relief by checking out other new dramas like Blue Lights and Three Little Birds. You can stream your other favourite British shows via your smartphone, tablet, desktop, Chromecast, Apple TV or Roku device, as well as LG and Samsung smart TVs.
Ooh.
Head to BritBox.com/LostInThePond and use the promo code LostInThePond when signing up for a monthly subscription, and you'll get 50% off your first month. The link is also in my description below.
Parks.
How do you decide which country has...
Is he changed? Is he changed? There's another day. Class. Anyway, parks. I mean, probably the US again. You've just got more variety. I feel like there's probably some parks in the UK that are definitely better than a lot of the ones in the US, but because the US has just such a wide variety, I'm going to assume it'll be the US. Again, I don't know. Like, I'm just sort of guessing with this.
As the best parks, because mostly I hate parks, whether that's municipal parks, theme parks, or national parks. It's like, ooh, I have to share this space with other humans and children, which is why I like big parks, because all of the crowds are more spread out. St James's Park in London is one such place, although I do have a vague memory of being attacked there by ducks. On the other hand, America has bigger parks and a smaller population density than the UK. So for example, when I visited the Benjamin Harrison State Park in Indiana, it almost felt like I was walking through the apocalypse, but with nice trees.
I've also realised if it comes to national parks, then it isn't really a competition again, is it? Like, you will have definitely like beautiful like national parks in the UK, but the US has national parks that I think are bigger than the country, right? The country of the UK. So when it comes to national parks, it's not even a comparison, to be honest.
And as much as British people love the Lake District or the Peak District or the Cairngorms, they can't hold a candle to America's national parks. This is the country that came up with the idea in the first place. And when Alaska has 2 national parks that are larger not just than Snowdonia National Park in Wales, but also Wales, you know that the number of people per square mile will be smaller. So for my money, America's parks come with slightly more perks.
Architecture. If this is like historical architecture, this probably isn't really a comparison. If it's to like architecture like in the modern times, it's probably not a comparison again, because it's the US and then obviously the UK for historical architecture. So this would probably be a draw. I would probably say the UK, like, because when you go to London, again, I've not been to the US, so I can't actually say, but when you go to like London, you see all these historical buildings. It's just like wilder. You look at these and you're like, these have been here for hundreds of years, and they're beautiful buildings, mixed in with the modern sort of, obviously, skyscrapers and stuff like that. Again, I don't really know. Maybe in the US I'd get the same feeling of like going into New York and having all these massive skyscrapers. Actually, I'm sure about that. I would be like, this is so wild, man. I'd be a bit creeped out by it, because you're just looking up and it's all these huge buildings, and I'm just not used to that at all. But yeah, we're going to see.
Architecture. Now that's right up my street, literally. I'm a big fan of buildings and design. And Britain has centuries worth of architecture and takes the preservation of it very seriously. America, on the other hand, doesn't so much. It is very telling that when you watch a controlled demolition video on YouTube, the location is more often than not the United States. And yet, I am a big sucker for brutalism and tall buildings. And Chicago has plenty of that. In fact, it has a plethora of architectural styles, including not just brutalism, but Art Deco and new And I like it. I like what it does to me. It makes me feel like I should be a photographer who slings webs for a living. And so even though I have huge respect for stupidly old English minsters, I like the look of American city skylines. And also some of the housing styles.
Yeah, I'd take this. Some of the homes in the US are cool. Like, they do stand out for sure. Because you can sort of just go crazier, really, because you have a lot more space to do what you want.
Style houses, or other ones that I see around Chicago, like the Queen Anne style, or quite particular to Chicago, the Greystone.
This looks like where like Count Dracula would live.
So for the first time in as many days, the United States of America has gone into the lead.
Damn it, healthcare. This could get a bit controversial. It's probably better in the US. It's just cheaper in the UK. I think that's just probably where I'd be with that. More accessible in the UK, but it's probably better quality in the US for people that can pay for that. Yeah, I guess that.
But with this category, I dare say that America's chances of victory just took a major blow to the arse. Because the American healthcare system is completely and utterly a little bit silly. And I don't just mean that from the point of view of the individual cost, but also, and I don't think people talk about this enough, how convoluted it is. And I first saw signs of this when I signed up for my first health insurance, when it started saying things like, you'll need to pay a deductible for this or a copay for that. I don't know what any of those words mean. And that particular confusion was born out of the fact that in Britain, this scenario wouldn't even exist. Sure, we pay contributions to national health insurance, but after that, everything's covered by the National Health Service, which I miss. And so because of that, I make the scorecard. Britain's 7th.
I wonder if someone like him, now he's dual national, does he still get the benefits of the NHS? Or do you have to live, I don't even know, do you have to live in the UK to have the benefits of the NHS? I guess you do. You have to be a tax-paying citizen as well. So yeah, I guess he doesn't get any benefits of it, to be honest.
The United States, 7th.
Food.
Ah, yes.
Definitely a wider variety in the US. Bar London. I feel like London definitely competes with the US because London just has everything, but I don't live there, so that doesn't really matter. The US is going to win because all you ever hear about how terrible the food is in the UK. Like, people will come to the UK and be like, it's great or whatever, but the food's terrible. So I'm going to assume the US will win this, and I'm not going to be surprised, but it's not as bad as you think, right? Show some respect to us.
The source of our delight and many of our healthcare problems. But which country generally does food better? Well, this is a bloody hard one to answer, but I'm going to go with my intuition on this. You know, people often say to me, like I can do anything about it, but ooh, British food is bland. Firstly, you don't know about the joys of a sausage roll, or of Yorkshire puddings, or of fish and or chips. I love British food, and if the saying is true that you are what you eat,
Fish and chips are overrated, by the way. I'm saying it. Whenever I get them, it's just not even that good. It's the most pointless food to me. People love it. My girlfriend loves it more than me, and she's not even from the UK. Whenever we order it, which is very rarely because I always feel disappointed after I have it, I'm just like, yeah, this is just terrible food. But she loves it, so I guess it's just from person to person. It's basic, right? It's just chips and fish. I mean, battered fish or sausage or whatever. Like, it's nothing special.
I am 67% British food myself, but only because most of my life was spent there so far. Because American food continues to broaden my horizons and waistline. Because perhaps just as good as Old England's fish and chips is New England's clam chowder. And you've had the joy of watching me try for the first time a Philly cheesesteak. Oh, that is really good.
I've had one of these from Subway. Doesn't really count, but halfway there.
That is really good. No, I take it all back. Cheese Whiz is my new hero.
And what rhymes with cheesesteak? Sea snake, but also cheesecake. I do love a good American cheesecake. Why am I Welsh? And I'm trying to think of it like this. I miss a lot of British foods. But one day, if I ever leave America, will I miss more American foods than I do British ones? And I think due to the American variety, the answer to that is yes. And so even though I didn't even remotely believe this before moving to the United States, I think it has the better food.
Can't argue. Chocolate. I mean, from what I've heard, I feel like the UK might win this. Like, the chocolate's alright here. Like, it's good. It's nothing like Belgian chocolate or whatever, but I feel like Dairy Milk, like, I'm just going to compare like Dairy Milk and Hershey's. I feel like more people like Dairy Milk than Hershey's. Even like when Americans try it, I've seen like videos of people tasting like different foods, obviously, just how people do foods from different countries. And it'll be like an American trying British chocolate for the first time or whatever. And from what I remember, I feel like they always just love it because it's just, they always say, oh, it's better than Hershey's or whatever. And I've had Hershey's a few times, chocolate's chocolate to me. Maybe dairy milk takes it a little bit more, but I've not had all the varieties of chocolates in the US. So I'm going to say the UK, but I don't really know, to be honest.
So we're down to the final
We're going to be a
category
draw.
with America in a
I can see
1-point
it.
lead. And my British subscribers are thinking, come on, Lawrence, American chocolate is bland. Don't you try to hoodwink us for the sake of tension and clicks. But that's not what I'm doing, because when you live in America for more than a decade, you start to see beyond the usual stereotypes.
Oh, no.
And this includes their chocolate. They find different ways to work in peanut
Reese's.
butter, something that most
Yep.
Brits wouldn't even think to do.
I love
That
Reese's.
said, I often think of the chocolate I left behind in Britain, because British chocolate.
The ones out of here that I love, Flakes are good. They're quite satisfying to have. Double Decker, good. Dairy Milk isn't the best one. Whispers, they're alright. 12s, they're quite good. These aren't the best selection, to be honest. Curly Whirly were my childhood chocolates. They're terrible now. Like I had one like 2 years ago. They're awful. But as a kid, they were good.
Like Crunches or Twirls.
Crunchies,
Or the Curly
ooh.
Whirly. Were the candy of my childhood. And when it comes to chocolate, you can't beat nostalgia. So, apologies, America. On this one, I'm going to go with Britain.
It's a draw.
British chocolate might not be the best in the world, but it's the best in mine.
Final
And
score.
so, what do you know? It's a tie. And already I can hear my American subscribers going, "Ooh, Lawrence, of course you would make this a tie. You're a fan of soccer in which nobody ever wins." Okay, so America prefers it when someone, i.e. America, wins. So, in that spirit, let's do a tiebreaker.
Okay.
And that tiebreaker question, plucked from the top of my head, is this. Which of the two countries has a better Windsor Castle? Wait, no, I'm being told that's biased. So, in the interest of an alternative, which country has won more World Series than any other? Right, I'm not very good at this. In that case, it's a tie. So well done to both countries for equally outdoing the other. And before I go, if you like the work I do here on Lost in the Pond and would like to give me most of your money so that I can make this channel better and live a cushy life, you can do so at Patreon.
Well, there you go. If you're interested, links will be in the description to this video where you can then find this. I love that your American accent is so cartoonishly Midwestern. I'm happy with a tie. A lot of it comes down to taste and nostalgia, and there's nothing wrong with liking stuff you're familiar with. Yeah, exactly. I think I had this down as a tie as well, to be fair. I mean, going through this, most welcoming, I didn't really know the answer to that. I just think I said a draw, didn't I? Signage, I didn't know what that meant at the start, but yeah, I couldn't compare it, so I guess tie. Transport, I said the UK. Beaches, I said the US, but we're missing one. Oh god, I don't know. I think I had it down as a tie anyway. Hopefully you enjoy this reaction. I do enjoy these types of videos. I feel like quite fun to watch and react to. But let me know your thoughts. How would you have had this if you've travelled to the UK and you've had more experience with this? I guess put in the comments what your score would have been. And vice versa, if you're from the UK and you've travelled to the US, put down your scores. Or if you live in the US and you're from the UK or whatever it is, put your scores down in the comments. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. And until next time, like, subscribe and peace.